Hey, man, can
Hey,
you,
what's going on?
ISO
It's been a while.
interviews? This is how you see people these days. It kind of sucks.
Yeah, isolation.
Yeah. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Yeah, so my name's Chris. Some people know me as 24 Karat Kev. I do a couple of things, just here and there. Used to do a bit of club promoting and stuff back in the day, and then I've been a music journalist for probably about 8 or 9 years now. And then last 2 years, I've kind of moved more into music management. So I manage a rap group from Sydney by the name of Triple One, which you guys might know, and then a rapper / grime MC from Brisbane called Nerve. He's a good producer too. Yeah, so if you guys haven't heard of Triple One or Nerve, get on it.
I bet you they have.
Maybe, hopefully, I don't know.
Sick. Who? I guess first, then who? What websites or what? You've done journalism for a whole bunch of stuff. Maybe you can just what you write about and who you write for and things like that.
So I've always kind of worked mostly on a freelance basis. So I've written for everyone from, the biggest newspapers like, the Sydney Morning Herald back down to stuff like Complex, Vice, Heist Nobiety, I guess the kind of more hip hop kind of tastemaker blogs, literally everyone in between, it's been a long ride, and I've pretty much freelance written for everybody, over the years, and it's been fun, and it's been a really great journey. I'm blessed to have gone on it.
And what mainly did you write about when was it about artists or was it about I don't know what kind of things?
Yeah, so I guess mainly the way I got my name out there as a journalist was I was doing hip hop. I guess when I first started, there wasn't that many people writing about hip hop. I mean, you had your little niche, Stealth magazine back in the day. That was a print mag, and then you had kind of like your little blogs here and there, but there wasn't anyone doing it really prolifically, I guess, in the internet age. I don't know if anyone's going to get mad at me for saying that, but so I just started focusing really on hip hop. And then I guess when the lockouts happened in Sydney and then all the clubs shut down, I was using my platform and my voice to really support local artists, because a lot of people were struggling back then. Even your club nights and your parties and stuff, and parties that we were throwing. So that's the way, through journalism, I was connecting with all these DJs, promoters, rappers, these people, this and that, and that's kind of where I started making my name, I guess. But I was mainly doing music. I do like a little bit of sneaker stuff and a little bit of streetwear stuff, but that's not as big in Australia as it is overseas. So it was kind of a bit harder to do that. But with hip hop popping off, and also kind of cool warehouse parties and stuff around Sydney, that's the main stuff that I was focusing on.
And when did it become? I guess this is what I saw anyway. Whenabouts how many years ago did it become really Australian focused? Like the artists, because I remember just talking about music and rap and whatever, but then there was all of a sudden a lot of Aussie artists that were around. Was that a long time ago? A few years ago, maybe more?
I mean, for me personally, it was when the lockout started. That's when I started taking a more Australian focus, because I realized that I could use my platform to actually help people, help build this ecosystem of people, and help build the scene so that all of us go and get the bag together, you know what I mean? But I mean, in terms of Australian journalism, I still don't think it's there yet, you know what I mean? And I think artists are realizing more and more that they don't need media attention anymore to get big, even if you look at, I guess, the big blogs, quote unquote, they still only report on a certain fraction of rappers that fit their narrative, they only report on the rappers who are kind of who are going to be brand friendly or corporate friendly, because all these publications are in bed with all the brands. So why would they be pushing this rapper who's going to go out there and do something crazy and he's not going to be accepted by a brand, essentially? So I think that it's slowly changing. 1-4, obviously that's the one that definitely changed, the way that media respond on hip hop. But still to this day, I think there's still very narrow scopes in who they choose to cover in terms of hip hop. And when they do it, it's not that good. It's not done in the context of the scene as a whole. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does, because this is going into a juvenile justice center, and I meet a lot of different cultures and kids in the juvenile justice centers, and a lot of them are like the artists you represent, but they don't because they don't not into drill or not into something that doesn't like, oh, this isn't represented and my music's going to go nowhere. But it's totally nice.
If there was one message I want to give to everyone, regardless of whether they're in juvie or wherever now, it's like, don't tailor your music to media, you know, because like I said before, artists are slowly realizing that they don't need media to blow up, you know. If you look at any of the drill dudes, you know, they weren't taken seriously until very recently, you know. Like I did the first ever 1-4 interview. And I thought that was crazy because, you know, by the time I got onto 1-4, which was at the end of 2018, you know, Ricky and Howard hit me up about 1-4, and then the very start of 2019, I did an interview with 1-4, and they're like, "This is our first interview," and I'm like, that doesn't make sense to me because, you know, they even by then they weren't huge then, but they still had, you know, a couple of 100,000 views on YouTube. Hooligan Hef, same thing. I did his first interview, and that was, you know, March 2019, and by then Hef was he was moving good, you know, like, so don't rely on media to push your story or push your music, because if you have an authentic voice and you have something interesting to say, people will pick up on it. And, you know, anyone from the underground, you look at someone like Rops, you look at, you know, all these young guys who are popping up, a lot of them don't have media attention, but they're still doing huge numbers. So never be worried about that. And there's always going to be, you know, there are people doing good stuff, you know, like everyone, I see a lot more DIY media platforms coming that are, you know, supporting kind of like younger artists and kind of more niche or underground artists. But at the end of the day, you know, you're responsible for writing your own story. You know, don't rely on anyone else.
Yeah, fully. Yeah, that's the good word. Where did you first hear of the guys that you manage now? Like, how did you find them? Or did they find you, or I guess like...
Yeah, Triple One Boys, it was just kind of through like people here and there, like you know, like for example, I met him at a party, One Day Sundays, which is like a party thrown by the One Day crew that used to happen in Sydney. It was like a massive hip hop block party, you know, and everyone would go. It'd be I think it was the first Sunday or the last Sunday every month, and it was a great party. But I met Marty from Triple One there. I'd heard about him this and there, Triple One here and there, but I wasn't really across them. I knew they did some shows like, you know, Sky High and Schemo and these sort of guys from the underground. Gave them a listen, and I really liked their music, you know. And at that point in time, Australian hip hop was not popping. Well, at least like the underground stuff, you know what I mean? Like the underground stuff, they were still very much underground. You know, all their fans were coming from America and Europe. You know,
so they had a supporter base overseas almost before.
They had it before, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because they had 2 or 3 of their really big singles were on an international YouTube platform.
Yeah.
So they got big overseas before they got big here, you know.
What was that platform?
It's called Astari. So like a lot of guys like Lil Peep, those sort of guys, they were on Astari. So they kind of cultivated this really kind of like underground cult fan base overseas. You know, they were getting 1-2 million views on their tracks, but they were still pulling 20 people to a show in Sydney. You know,
that's pretty wild.
It's so wild. It's like reverse. You know, it's like reverse of everyone else's story.
Yeah, because I talked to Mowgli to Live the other day.
Yeah, Live.
And stuff seems so crew based, right? Like crew support. It starts there, but I guess it doesn't always start there.
Yeah, no. Well, they had like, you know, the 20, 30 people that would come to a show. You know, that was all very much, you know, the inner west kind of indie kind of punk crossover scene. You know, they had like I said, they had shows with Schemo and Sky High, so a few people from like, you know, the underground knew them. By the time I started managing them, they were pulling like, you know, 100 to 150 people to a show, which is okay, which is good, you know, for an underground act. But then, you know, I think at that same time, everything started happening, like, you know, that's when Chillin' It came back on the scene, and then Chillin' It was throwing these big festivals with, you know, Triple One, Wombat, Nerve, Shadow, all these guys. So the underground all started moving at the same time, and that's the same time that Triple J started playing our stuff. So as soon as Triple J started playing our stuff, that's when we saw our fan base kind of like expand rapidly, and then that's when we started being able to do hard ticket tours. We did a hard ticket tour in London before we did one in Sydney.
Wow. That's wild.
Yeah, it makes literally no sense, you know. Like we did a 200-person show in London, and then we came back and then did 900 in Sydney. Before that, we'd done a co-headline tour with this band called Johnny Hunter. But our first headline ticketed tour was in London, which
Yeah.
is like wild. Yeah.
So why? I guess because I guess if you listen to Triple One, they have their sound, right? It's definitely their sound. It's not like does that? I guess it doesn't really matter what the sound is. It translates as if it's good, right? Like
100%. Yeah. I mean, put it this way, like when I first started managing Triple One, I had already been working in music for like, 4 or 5 years, so I had connections here and there that they just didn't have, because you got to understand that they were very underground. You know what I mean? Like they were like abrasive. Their sound was very abrasive. So, I started messaging people here and there and, like just promoters and just label people that I knew from over the years. And I got the same response from like 3 or 4 people. They're like, yeah, I don't really get it, but good luck with this. Like yada, yada, yada. I don't really get it. And that just shows you that like never rely on the industry to tell you what makes sense, because most of the time these guys are a couple of years behind, if I'm going to be honest. Even with like, the drill stuff, it's like, yeah, like we started picking it. Yeah. Like even I was behind, but everyone else was, most of these like mainstream, like labels, they didn't really see the potential in 1/4 until they really started popping, and then it was undeniable. You know what I mean? But so the advice around that, I would say, is just always make your own sound and never rely on a sound that's hot to make a track, because that's not going to be cool in the next year, and you're not going to have longevity as an artist. Just believe in your sound and do your own sound, and then if it's good enough, it's going to translate to an audience, and it's going to find its audience, organically. You don't need to like jump on the latest sound and then just bet on that, because that sound's not going to be hot in a couple of years. You got to think about long term with these things. Yeah, sure. If you did a song, if you're not a drill artist but you did a drill song today, it might get you heaps of views in the short term. But then when something else hot comes along, and you weren't being authentic to yourself in doing a drill song, where's that going to leave you as an artist? You're probably going to be confused. So I would say just always like find your own sound and don't bet too much on like what's hot at the moment.
I've never seen a sound like we've been going to Jivvies for 10 years, and I've never seen a sound take over. Not even close. It was super wild. What about Nerve? What was his kind of deal like when you found him and things like that?
Yeah, so Nerve I met actually at a Triple One show, I'm pretty sure, when we were on tour. He was actually the national support for our tour. And then I met him there, we were just friends here and there. We would chat about music and stuff. And what really impressed me was that like he was able to do so many styles differently. Like what I was saying before, you got to be versatile and authentic with your sound. And that's something that I definitely found with him. He started off doing boom bap, very traditional style, the stuff that was accepted by, the Aussie hip hop crowd, very kind of like old school production and stuff. And then he started doing grime, I think maybe around 2016 or something. The grime scene is still really, you got your Fractures and your Alex Jones and stuff still nowadays. But I think I started hearing him do cyphers over grime, and he was really, really good over 140 BPM. So I think I was like, man, I was really impressed with the way that he could do all these different styles. And then I learned that he started making his own beats. So that's when I started thinking, hey, like this could be a guy to look into, So I did a couple of interviews with him. We brought him on tour. We had a good time. And I was, just keeping an eye on him here and there. And then I was actually going to go to Falls Festival last Christmas with him. So I flew down to Melbourne to hang out with some mates. And then he was like, do you want to come down to Falls in Lorne? Which is, 2 hours drive out of Melbourne or something. And I was like, yeah, sweet. And then Lorne, it ended up getting cancelled because of the bushfires. But then me and him just hung out on New Year's Eve, and then it was actually his videographer, Carl Golly, was like, it was New Year's Eve, and it was like, must have been 3 a.m. or something, and we were in this massive techno party, and all the bass was cranking, and then, everyone was a little bit intoxicated. So, Carl, who's Nerve's video guy, was like, man, you should manage Nerve. You should help out managing with Nerve. And I was like, I don't know if you're saying this because it's 3 a.m. on New Year's Eve and you're just a little bit lit, or like whether you're serious, you know what I mean? I was like, we'll have a conversation about this later. He's like, oh yeah, sorry, bro. Yeah, we'll talk about it later. Anyway, I gave Nerve a call maybe a week after that, and I was like, hey, bro, like, if you're open to me jumping on and helping out with things, then, let's do it. And then it was one phone call, and that was it. And then I've been helping out for, since the start of, that would have been, the start of this year. So about 3 months now, I've been kind of helping out on those projects, yeah.
Yeah, and that's almost you. There's still some journalism, but that's almost you full time now, isn't it? This management, or there's still the
Yeah,
website and stuff.
yeah. I mean, what I started realizing with managing as well is that it's so much about relationships, and just everything I've gone as a job. I haven't showed my resume to anyone in like 7 years. I don't even know if I still have it on this laptop. It's just so much about relationships and building a network. And what I realized with Filter, which is the website that I run, what I realized with Filter is that management and journalism can help each other. We help build an ecosystem. You know what I mean? So, for example, Nerve had a single releasing, and I was like, Nerve, get on my show. Like, and that's going to help him, and that's going to help us.
Like, so plug this show for a second. It's just through the website, right?
Yeah, just through So we just started doing more YouTube content. We're really looking to push YouTube content this year. So we've just started, our YouTube series, which is basically me just sitting down with rappers for like half an hour, 45 minutes, and really doing real deep interviews. So our first one was with Husky.
Husky one's awesome, actually. It made me like him a lot more.
Yeah, a lot of people saw a different side to Husky from that, which I think what we're trying to achieve. That's what we're trying to achieve with the show. We're trying to, show that I feel like everyone sees artists in this light, and then to show kind of a more human side to them is nice. So, so we did Husky, Chillin' It, Nerve, and TK Maidza, and those were our first 4 episodes. And we're going to look to do more. It's tricky with the Corona stuff, but so Nerve was releasing a single, and I was managing Nerve, and I'm like, why not get on our show? You know what I mean? We have X thousand amount of subscribers on our YouTube channel. This will be a good opportunity for you to talk about your single. Again, that goes back to me not trusting that many other journalists, because if I want Nerve to tell his story, I'm just going to get it out of him because I'm a journalist and I'm his manager. So we may as well do it, And then every single interview I do, it's just like nice to build that rapport with that artist. And then, because, even if I interview an artist who's not familiar with 111, I might interview them and they're like, hey, that was a really cool interview that I did with Kev. Oh yeah, he manages those guys 111. And then they might check that artist and they might, collaborate. That's how collaborations work, It's just like this person knows this person and this person knows this person, and you just build a natural rapport and then it just happens, So with Filter, I'm definitely trying to build like an ecosystem, like we throw gigs, we do interviews, a lot of the artists that we interview, we put them forward for gigs, So if we build a really good rapport as an interviewer and an interviewee, next time a brand comes to us and says, hey, we really want to throw this gig, have you got any artists in mind? We're straight away going to go to the guys that we interviewed because, they gave us their time.
Yeah. Have you had any, like, just because when I watched the interviews, like we talked about, just quickly touched on the Husky one, like, have you had moments in the interviews where you've found out, like, something about someone or, like, that you just never would have expected? Has there been any, like, I guess, moments where you just kind of went, whoa, like, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And, like,
I think most interviews, you just never know where they're going to go. Yeah, you never know where they're going to go. You know what I mean? You just, if you have that rapport with the artist, and then you never know where it's going to go if they're talkative. The good thing about the Husky one was he was so willing to talk. You know what I mean? And I feel like after everything he's been through, it was definitely a chance for him to get a lot off his chest, and full props to him because he came into that interview so open-minded and ready to talk about whatever, you know what I mean? Before I interview an artist, I always ask him, is there any topics you want to steer away from? Because, a lot of artists just don't want to talk about certain things,
Yeah.
You don't want to put your whole life out there, But, Husky, props to him because, he came in the interview and he was so willing to talk, and I feel like that was a really good chance for him to get, stuff off his chest. So that ended up being a really good interview. Like, I already knew a lot of stuff about him, but I think to see him talk like so openly the way that he did, I think it surprised a lot of people, including myself. The atmosphere in the room that day was crazy. Because everyone was just like, wow. Like,
I went and I jumped on his YouTube channel straight afterwards. Actually, I listened to a whole bunch of the songs again because, like, I don't know, songs mean so much more after you hear him talk.
Exactly, yeah, because his music's so personal. Like, I feel like it's good to have him have an outlet where he can kind of like elaborate on all the things that he talks about in his music. And he's a crazy lyricist and a crazy storyteller too. So, yeah, props to Husky.
What are you looking forward to doing with what you do? Like, as far as like managing artists or the website, or is there something that you're like, like this is the next thing I'm going to do and I'm hella excited about it? Like, interesting gig or like creating different interviews or things like that?
Yeah. I guess with gigs and stuff, it's hard to say because everything's still up in the air. We don't know when we're going to be able to tour again. We don't know when there's going to be festivals again. So, you know, like it sucks, but you know, at the same time, we're lucky that, you know, man, if I was an artist coming up right now, it'd be hard, you know, releasing music and not being able to tour and stuff like that. So I'm at least grateful that, you know, with Triple One to Know, we got a few tours under the belt before this stuff kicked in. But, you know, it's going to be a couple of months. I think a couple of months before we see shows again at the very least. But, you know, they'll be back. So on that front, it's hard. But with the management stuff, I'm always looking to manage new artists. It just has to be the right artist, you know, and it has to be cohesive with the rest of the roster and it has to make sense, you know.
How many staff do you have? Just you?
Just me, bro.
Just you. You do everything.
Yeah. I actually don't do that much. I just do things here and there in very energetic spurts, you know. And then with Filter, I guess Filter, the goal for me at least, I do Filter with one other person, so I don't know. I mean, we obviously have a unified goal, but like my goal is that, you know, I want to get in the same way that, you know, in America you have a Lyrical Lemonade or you have a No Jumper, you know. As soon as someone gets on No Jumper, there's going to be a healthy audience there being like, wow, I hadn't heard of this guy before. You know, I want to get on this guy. That's the level that we want Filter to be at, you know, to the point where, you know, when someone's on there, it becomes like a moment, you know, and that would be a dream for me, just to build the platform to that point.
Yeah, awesome. I think a lot of people think like that. Just a basic question about platforms and what you're using and what's useful for you. Like, is YouTube really useful at the moment, or is there something other platform? Like, where do you focus your energy with that kind of stuff?
I guess one of the major changes for me was being a journalist was that over the years, you know, it was very different to when I started. When I started, it would have been, you know, close to 10 years ago. So audiences obviously over that time have gotten a lot more visual and their attention spans have gotten a lot shorter. So something I had to learn was that being like, you know, no one cares if you write a 3,000 word article on Kanye West, you know, just no one cares, bro. Like, you know, and for me, that's like, you know, if that's what you've grown up doing and then you just suddenly find the audience isn't in tune to that stuff anymore, it's a bit kind of like, whoa, you know what I mean? It's like, so you got to rethink like how you approach things for a contemporary audience. So for me, it's like, that's why we started going to YouTube more, because we were like, okay, you have spent your whole life, you know, writing, you know, I probably got a bit off it because I wasn't getting the kind of feedback that I wanted, you know, through writing, because audiences have just changed. Okay, sweet, let's start doing video now, you know. And I've always done video, but we're really going heavy with it this year because it's like, you know, audiences just don't want to read that much stuff anymore, you know. I mean, there is going to be a core audience that does, but you know, diehard fans are going to read articles about people and read, like, you know, spend 15 minutes reading a thing. But I think it's much easier for audiences nowadays to watch 15 minutes of stuff, you know. And the visual element, I think humans are just visual creatures, you know. We like to see things, you know. So I feel like, you know, but there's heaps of other stuff like that rappers need to be thinking about. If you look at TikTok, you know, I'm too old for TikTok, bro. But like, you know, if you look at if you look at what's his name, you know, Hooligan Hefts, or like even the rappers NME, you know, they've got a big presence on TikTok. You know, people doing like little skits and little dances and stuff, and that's something that artists have to think about nowadays. You know, Younger Lips, here's another one that used TikTok heaps. So that's something that artists got to think about in terms of their marketing and their branding. You know, like, how can I blow up? How do I, you know, my music video is going to be on YouTube. You know, that's a given. But like, how can I use other platforms to kind of like feed into that? You know what I mean? And then from YouTube views is how do I feed my YouTube views into actual money? You know, which is of course doing live shows. So it's just like a you know, little things that you got to hit here and there and just figure out the bridge in between.
Artists are really starting to figure out how to make money off their music, aren't they? Like, it's much simpler now for an artist to go, okay, Spotify and YouTube, and I can monetize that, right? I guess it seems a lot simpler if you don't go to a label. And is that, like, I don't know, do your artists find that hard, or?
I think more than ever, like, artists have more power, because especially in the underground, you know, a lot of artists, that are blowing up right now, like everyone I've mentioned, Chillin' It, 1-4, Hooligan Hefts, they're all independent, you know. They might have a distributor, but they're still independent.
Yeah,
they own
so
their masters.
that's pretty wild. So most of those artists just aren't on a label. There's record
Well, they have,
labels. The distributor.
yeah, they have a distributor, which means that's just someone that puts out your music. You know,
They don't
but they don't own
the
they
song.
don't own your music. You know, they don't own your music. They just help you put it out, and they take like a little, you know, slice of your money. But at the end of the day, like if you're an artist and you got to think about these things, you know, like I want all my music to be on all these platforms, you know, on this day. I want, you know, vinyls, CDs, all these other things, you know, in every store in Australia. That's when a distributor helps out, you know. And the important thing is they don't own your music. So, you know, I understand a lot of rappers from the underground are like, you know, they're very apprehensive about labels or even distributors, you know, understandably, because, you know, they have that underdog mentality, you know, I'm going to do it myself. But at the end of the day, all labels and all distributors, they're malleable, you know, all those deals are flexible, you know. If there's something you're not comfortable with, you can, if you have enough leverage and you have enough, you know, momentum behind you, you got 10 million views on YouTube, there's things that you can discuss, you know. It's never like, you know, here's the deal and you're going to take it and I own you for the next 10 years, you know. That might be the case for some artists if they don't get a lawyer. But just know that artists now more than ever, they have more power than ever, you know. So if you're thinking about doing a distribution deal or a label deal, just always get a lawyer. 100%. The first thing you do, you know, get a lawyer, you know, and raise your concerns with a lawyer, and they can negotiate on your behalf on what points you're not comfortable with, you know. So I just feel like there's a lot of, you know, as much as, you know, like independent artists are really holding the power now, there is also value in looking into a distributor or a label if it's the right circumstances for that artist.
Yeah, fully.